Hi everyone, and a very good evening, and thank you all for tuning in and listening to this as well. Today we have with us is Shannon Donna Massar, who is the founder and the CEO of Faith Foundation. Thank you so much, Shannon, for joining us today. So,
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
it's our pleasure. Shannon, even before we get into your organization, I just want to talk more about you and get to know you more as to how is it that you got associated to the cause, and like what was it like for you in your teens, and what really drove you to start something like a faith foundation?
Okay. So I came from a social work background, and I think I was in Bombay for like 7 years, and I studied there, and I was working for an organization there, mainly mainly it was more on anti-trafficking work. And I think my experiences from there kind of pushed me to come back home and start the work. The reason why, because when I was doing the anti-trafficking work there, we had a number of girls and women who would be trafficked from the Northeast India. And and I always looked at how can we work on prevention, because the issues that we deal when it comes to human trafficking is so it's very complex. And even after having rescued these girls and women, it's very difficult to get them back into the society. And that was one of the reasons I thought, why not go back home and start something back home for the communities here where I live. So that was the main reason of me wanting to do this work. Faith Foundation actually started, so as to say, it was started by a group of 4 women, I being one of the co-founders. And over a course of time, when we started, we did think about working mainly for girls and children. And one of the issues that was very was there in our society was child sexual abuse. So that was how we kind of came together and thought, why not do something again, work on prevention, because even if you're looking at traffickings, if a child or a child has been sexually abused, that can be a vulnerable factor to a child or a woman or a girl being trafficked. So on that note, we started working on child sexual abuse, and then also looking at what could be the root causes of why sexual abuse is happening, of why violence is happening. Just to share with you, we come from like a matrilineal society, wherein they say, I mean, it's usually the women that is given importance, but even in our society, even though we're like, so as you see, I mean, we have more freedom of movement or of choosing our own partners, yet, the mindset is still very much, patriarchal, and there are a lot of gender imbalances that happen. And so we started working on that level as well. How can we address root causes to, looking at violence, looking at why abuse is happening in our communities and society. Yeah, so that is how, like, so now when it comes to Faith Foundation, it's 9 years. We are moving towards completing our 10th year in April. So it's going to be 10 years. Yeah.
Wow, congratulations on that. It
Thank you.
in itself is a big milestone. And now that you said it's 10 years, so I'm assuming that you would have started this organization when you were fairly young, right? So did you find any challenges, because being a founder and a CEO at that age, when all of us are trying to figure out a lot in life, did you think that it was like there was something which was challenging to start at that age? Did you face any challenges?
I think initially it was the finances. Yeah. But I think finances was one thing. Another thing is also being a young woman, in this field and heading an organization is, as I've already shared earlier, that maybe at times I'm not being taken seriously, like, oh, okay, it's just a bunch of, young women starting this organization. So that's the kind of thing that has happened. But I think, but I feel finance is one thing, but I feel that over a period of time, it's the work that speaks.
Mhm.
And what is important also is, what I realize is that, you know, the kind of relationship or the kind of communication that you keep with people, that is also equally important. So I can't say that, you know, my challenges are over. You know, every year there's always something or the other that is happening, but I'm learning. You know, it's always something that I learned every year. Yeah. But initially, yes, initially was the finance part. Yeah. So for, say, for about 3 to 4 years, we we went without like, you know, any kind of like a remuneration.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. So it was purely on like, okay, just getting money to just run our programs, look at the, yeah, but not really on having like an honorarium or any kind of a remuneration that came in. Slowly, you know, we had fellowships that did support us for 2 years. And then that kind of eventually grew into then, you know, project support. Yeah.
So, I mean, because finance, as much as we've seen in the non-profit and the social sector world that it's always a challenge to raise funds or to start a particular program. Uh, and especially when you mentioned that in the first initial years, you're not even taking any remuneration or any kind of salary to do it. I'm sure financially it would be very challenging for you as well, right? So, what is the like one thing that fuel for you that you kept driving you to continue this work and keep you on into believing? I would say because of course the cause is in itself so important even till date, in any part of India or I would say the world. Uh,
Yeah.
but like there's also a point that the personal needs also have to be met at certain level, right? So when you're
Yes.
struggling so badly for the funding and finances, how is it that you kept that motivation going to take it to
Yeah.
10 today? I mean, okay.
Um, for me, I think it was the passion that kept me going. And I felt that it was my calling to do this work. So that was the main thing, because um, for me, it was about those girls and women that I've worked, you know, in the past with. And I still remember their names, I still remember their faces. And I think that was what kept me going. And at the same time, you know, being a woman also, as to say that that cares for the community, I really want to look at, you know, at the end, like, you know, our children, our girls are our, you know, future generations to come. And so the need to work to for them, you know,
Mhm.
for their protection, or, you know, for them to be able to have better futures, for their safety. So yeah, I think that kind of like kept me going. I think another factor that kind of kept me going was the fact that, because I had, you know, a very supportive family. My spouse, my partner, is also very supportive of the work that I do. And I think that that really helps when you have like a support system. And yeah, I think my support system in a way has been very great when in terms of my family or my friends, or, you know, my past people who I've met, you know, uh, in the workspace, who have now become really good friends and supporters to the work that, you know, that we're doing right now. Yeah. So support, I think, passion, the calling, and the support system that is there, that kind of helps you to, you know, to move. Yeah.
Wow, it's almost like a perfect formula to start with, and it. I mean, as easy as it is to use these, I think you know even if you have those, you still have to have the discipline and that that motivation to keep going. For the kind of cause that you run. And I was just about to ask you, you answered it yourself, like how was it with your family and your friends when you started this, and I can see that that's also really helped you to kind of sustain and build uh, on the programs that and the kind of cause that you're working with.
Yeah.
So just digging a little deeper into your programs, um, I'm assuming that you work with children uh,
Yeah.
and you try to cultivate that mindset or that kind of education at a very young age so that, you know, there are no incidences that happen in the
Mm.
future. So is
Yeah.
it only that you teach young girls, or is it like both girls and boys as to like what boys should be doing and what girls should be careful
Mm.
about, or you know?
Yeah. Mm, so we look at both girls and boys. Initially, when we started the organization, we wanted to, have a very special focus on girls. But over a period of time, we realized that, it was very important that we also engage boys, in this program. So the personal safety education program that we do, we conduct with both girls and boys. We run it from, say, the age of 8 to about 17, 18. Now we've brought if now we're going to be starting with children of like 5 onwards to 18, because we realize that even younger kids do need that kind of education. With the boys, actually, just to share with you, I know that this is about Faith Foundation, but then we have our partnerships as well with Equal Community Foundation, wherein through the program their gender transformative program that we've tried to implement it as well. But we've not been able to really move ahead with that for the fact that because of COVID. But now that we're kind of looking at how we can, kind of like reworking and revamping our programs again. So that is something that we realize that it's not just the girls that need it, even the boys also need it. But partly one of the other things that we're also trying to do, how we can kind of create like a gender balance between girls and boys, is that we've brought in like a program. This is very specific to the communities, the rural communities that we work with. It's called, Play Quitty, wherein, we're bringing in frisbee, the game of frisbee, for both girls and boys to play together. But at the initial stage right now, we're working only with girls and building their leadership. And yes, we will be bringing in the boys, and because it's a non-contact sport, and that's one way that they will be able to learn respect. They'll be able to also see that it's not just the boys that can play, but also both girls and boys can play together with the same skill set. So that's something that we're exploring, that we've just started with, Play Quitty, frisbee. Yeah.
Wow. I love how you are trying to, teach kids through multiple things. It's just not about the education, it's also about one is building their personality and leadership, but also through games, you're trying to um, widen their horizon as to
Yeah.
how, they could see the world differently as well. So, I mean, absolutely love your initiative. And anytime, hopefully when I'm in Shillong, I can come and visit. Uh, I've played Frisbee for a bit. There was actually a program that I'd done in school when
Okay.
it was actually working with the underprivileged kids,
That's
and
nice.
we were doing like a camp for them there. So it's always a lot of fun. It's
Yeah.
about, like how you mentioned, so much to learn from these kind of sports, and also to, one is that physical activity, which is equally
Yeah.
important for the kids, and second is the mental development, mental toughness that you can teach through these things.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing these things, Shannon. And
Thank you.
is there anything this year that you're trying to start a new initiative apart from the frisbee? I mean, I know you're trying to throw it to the boys as well, and
Yeah.
hopefully, I hear there are tournaments happening as well. Is there anything else that Faith Foundation is trying to start this year?
Actually, no, not really much other than the frisbee part of it. This year, it's been we're looking at more of strengthening our existing programs in terms of our school programs, and also like how can we also look at strengthening our community outreach as well. Um, so this year we've been more of actually last year and this year, so it's 2022.
Mhm.
Yes. So we have been working more on revamping our curriculum, personal safety curriculum, the curriculum that we do with the teachers, and also how can we also strengthen the systems, let's say like the system in schools, that how can they create mechanisms or look at child protection or child safeguarding as a priority in schools. So that's something that we're trying to initiate, because we realize that just us going and teaching personal safety is not enough unless they have these mechanisms in schools or communities that are there to say that, okay, you know what, these are the things we're doing to safeguard children against harm and abuse, and also to see that if anything happens, that they respond to issues. Yeah, I think apart from that, I think that is basically one thing. Another thing is also that we're trying to look at also is promote well-being in the organization, at the organizational level, and see how that can also work alongside with the programs that we run in schools. Like, say for example, like we have like dance movement therapy that we certain practices that we do in the organization, and how can we also integrate that, a little bit of that with the survivors that we work with, the child sexual abuse survivors, and also the other kids that we work with, the other children that we work with in schools. Just a few elements of well-being, mental health. Yeah.
That's very interesting to know. Just before I close this conversation,
Yes.
actually, I would want to close it with this because I know you're a young parent as well, and how difficult is it, or I would say, how do you really manage, being like your motherhood and running this company? So just wanted to understand more about that as well.
Hmm. I think I've been very, so as to see, when I first started, it was very hard for me to manage, to balance, between uh, home and work. It is still very difficult to do that right now. But a few things that I've learned to do is that if what I need to do with work, I do. If I have to travel, um, if I need to leave my child, I will have to leave my child, right? And so, like I said, I have a very supportive family, like my mother, my sisters, my brothers, my partner is also there to take care of the child when I'm not there. And also, one of the other things that I'm doing is I talk to my child about the work that I do. I take her to the field as well.
Wow.
So that is one thing that I do on weekends. If I need to go to the community, I would take her along. Yeah, so it's not easy, but I think these are things that everyone has to go through. It's just how we're able to navigate through these things. I think, yeah, I'm blessed to have a child who actually understands. I know she's just 5 years old, but when you speak to her and you talk to her, and I think every child would understand. So being able to really just openly speak to her, tell her what it is, and do what you have to do. I think that's what I usually do. If I need to travel, I mean, I don't have a choice but leave my child and travel. Of course, my priority is there with my family. But like I said, the support system is so important, that when there are things that you need to do, and you have someone else to support you. Yeah.
Thank you for being so candid and sharing, part of your life as well. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, Shannon.
Thank
Uh,
you. Thank
we
you.
hope the best for you and your organization as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. Thank you.